All right, you guys. My first Bible study ever. I am literally like so nervous. I hope that I tell y'all the right things. For one, y'all need to grab your coffee, your Starbucks, your water, whatever it is that you're gonna want during this Bible study. Go ahead and grab it now. Like I have mine right here, and I already kind of like drank my Starbucks, but yeah. So go grab that. I am very nervous because I'm not a preacher. I'm not in ministry at all. I I'm just a person who loves God and reads the Bible, and I like just want to share with you what I get from it. So, this is just like me reading it with y'all and like just reading the Bible together. That's really what I want to do with you. So, I'm going to give you a little backstory on this. Um, for one, look at my outfit. I just got the shower. My hair is like so ugly, but I just um, really wanted to make time to make this video for y'all because I have been so excited to start and I have the time, so let's do it. Little backstory on this. So when I do start reading the Bible with y'all, we're gonna be doing it together, kind of just like if you're new to the Bible, how to study it, where to start. But for me, this chapter means a lot to me. This story. So I don't know if you read if you watched my testimony video yet. If you haven't, like click on it. Go watch it. And because basically after the hallway like season in my life, I started trying to be happier. I started to try to find happier things in my life, just anything that could just make me smile for a little bit of the day. That's all I was looking for. And around this time, it was like the end of May, like beginning of April, and Russ had came out with a new song titled "Fire," and I was like listening to it on repeat, right? Because it was pretty upbeat, and I was like, okay, like I was getting into it, and I was at work and I was really busy, and like for some reason Spotify wasn't like letting me like just press like play. So I like searched up just like fire, and I just like clicked on the first one because I wasn't like paying attention. I was like really busy, but I wanted like music in my head, in my ears. And I ended up clicking on this song called Fires by Jordan, I believe. Let me just see if I can play it real quick. I'm not really sure if I'm even allowed to do that. May not be easy. And everything that I need, you've already given me. I remember. When I clicked on it, I was like, what is this song? Like, this is not what I put on. But if you could really hear it completely, the song started off with, I remember when you told me that this life would not be easy. So, of course, I kept the song going because I was like, there's nothing that I personally did to put this song on, and this is God trying to make me find it somehow. And so I was listening to it, and as it goes on, it basically talks about that like he was in a fire and how God pulled him out of the flames, and um, he had to trust God that like he was like, I might feel the heat a little bit, but like I know that you have me. And so I was kind of like curious because I was like I wonder like what this song, like what his testimony is, where this song came from. So when I searched it up, it came up that there was a another person in his life before that like needed help with his family. Basically, a lot of Christians got together and like helped him because he was about to lose his house, and he needed help to provide for his wife and children. So a group of Christians got together and like helped him pay for his house, and it reminded Jordan of himself of whenever he has problems and God sends other people to help him, and so he made this song. And so I was like, I wonder if this like can relate to the Bible somehow. Um, so I just like searched up like main fires in the Bible, and the first one that came up was in Daniel 3. So just a little backstory so you can see like why I even picked this one. So this is Daniel 3 for you. We're gonna start in Daniel 3 just because it's very important to me. This is like the first story, the first chapter, the first anything that I read in the Bible since that hallway season um, was Daniel 3, and it's very special to me. I hope that I can make it relate to y'all's world as well, like your season, and yeah, hopefully you like it. So if you have your Bible, um, open it to Daniel 3. If you don't have a Bible, you can also like download the Bible app. It's free. It's on Android, iPhone, anything that you need, it should be on there. And if you aren't going to download it or you don't have your own Bible, I'm going to read it anyways to you, and I'm also going to like have the words right here. So like you should be okay. All right. So we're reading in Daniel 3. Just like a little bit of backstory to Daniel 3. In Daniel 2, there is a guy named Daniel. He's the one who wrote the book of Daniel. So Daniel 1 and 2 kind of just like tells like who Daniel is and his story, and like how he came to like where he was. So Daniel 2 basically just explains how like there was a king. His name was King Nebuchadnezzar. He was like having like these visions, and he was like, tell me what these dreams mean. And he went to like all these magicians and like other people who were supposed to like read your dreams, and like they weren't like able to tell him, but Daniel told him like exactly what he needed to hear. And so he appointed him to chief of governor, I believe. He just made him like a very like high person of power in Babylon, which is like where they were living. And so because they made him like a very high person in power, he was like, hey, like I also have these people. Their name are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I want to put in a request for them to manage Babylon. And so he also brought these three people in to help be like an importance to Babylon. So in Daniel 2, at the very end of the chapter Daniel 2 verse 48 says, then the king promoted Daniel and gave him many generous gifts. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and chief governor over all the wise men of Babylon. At Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to manage the province of Babylon, but Daniel remained at the king's court. So now Daniel is in high power at the king's court, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are now also kind of like management of Babylon. Just keep it in order, and yeah. So now it's them four, and that's when we're gonna get into Daniel 3. So it starts off with King Nebuchadnezzar made a gold statue 90 feet high and 90 feet wide. So think about this, guys, okay? Because everything in the Bible is said for a reason. I know that there's like different versions of everything of like the Bible, but they all say the same thing, and they all make sure that they keep the same words. And in almost every single version, it makes sure to mention that how big this statue was. Think 90 feet high and 9 feet wide. That is huge. That's a really big statue, okay? He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar sent word to assemble the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of the provinces to attend the dedication of the statue King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So right now he's just listing basically all the important people of Babylon. He's saying the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the advisors, the treasurers, the judges. Like he's saying like anyone who has any type of power, any type of importance in Babylon is here. They're all right here. Verse 3. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the rulers of provinces assembled for the dedication of the statue the king has set up. Then they stood before the statue Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So again, the Bible repeats all the people of importance that are there. And I think it just repeats it to just like emphasize that like even people of power were there. Everybody was there, like from little to big, like president was there, king was there, governor, chiefs, everybody was there. A herald loudly proclaimed, people of every nation and language, you are commanded. So a herald, he says that he makes it very loud, right? I think like a herald are like the ones that are like our messengers for the town. Like kind of like the ones with the horns who are like, like they're talking in the megaphones and they're like saying like the messages. That's how what I think of a herald half the time. So he's saying it very loudly. He's saying people of every nation and every language. So everyone there, the king does not care if you're in a different language, you're in a different nation, if you're from somewhere else, if you worship something else, it doesn't matter. If you're there, you are commanded. You have no choice. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, you are to fall face down and worship the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. So he's saying, when you hear this music, like he basically, so if you think about it, he's naming every single instrument that makes music, right? So imagine there's this beautiful, just like gold statue, right? It's super big, super tall. The whole town is surrounding it right now. And now he's saying, and now I'm going to play music. I'm going to make it fun. I'm going to make it loud. I'm going to make it sound pretty. And you are to bow down and worship this statue every time you hear this music. So now it's going to feel like a party. Now it's going to feel like this statue is like such a huge thing, and the whole town is going to be a part of it. Then he says, but whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. So now he's saying, if you don't worship, if you don't bow down when you hear this music, because you can't miss it, you can't miss it. The whole town is falling down. The music is so loud. Everyone's doing it. You should be able to do it too. And if you don't, I will immediately put you into a blazing fire. Immediately. He doesn't say, like, you're going to go to trial. He doesn't say you have a second chance. He says, then and there, I will throw you into the fire. So this is verse 7. Therefore, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and every kind of music, people of every nation and language fell down and worshipped the gold statue that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. So like I said, they're just repeating themselves because it gives emphasis on how important this is. Every person of every nation and every language fell down. It was more like you were scared not to do it, right? So just think about it as like right now you're at this gold statue, the music is loud, everyone's falling down, and you're like, if they literally see me, maybe even be the last one bow down, they might even just take me because I hesitated. It's just the simple fact that everybody there, whether you had power or not, you had to bow down at this statue. And he was letting that be known. So not only are people doing it just because it's loud and it's pretty and it's big, but also because the king said so. And also because he's threatening you and he's saying, if not, you're basically going to die. Like, I'm killing you off. You're getting thrown into the fire. Like, if you're not going to listen to me, you're done. Right? So they're scared. They're like, there's no way I ain't just bowing down. Like, just bow down every time you hear the music. You'll be okay. Right? And they were scared. Like, that's a very scary thing. So we're going to keep going. And in verse 8, it says, they took this occasion to come forward and maliciously accuse the Jews. So the Jews were kind of more so like God's people. And so there was like always like a battle between the Chaldeans, I don't know, and the Jews. And so they were just trying to like always have something to have on them. Verse 9, it says, they said to King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. You, as king, have issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music must fall down and worship the gold statue. Whoever does not fall down and worship will be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. There are some Jews that you have appointed to manage the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men have ignored you, the king. They do not serve your gods or worship the gold statue you have set up. So, because these people have what we call now beef with these 3 Jews, because they're Jews that also, like I said, have some type of power in Babylon, right? So they're like managers. They didn't have to work their way up. They were just kind of like appointed because Daniel requested, like, hey, like, I know these 3 people, they're good. bring them on. And the king was like, because, you did this for me, I believe everything you say. So yeah, bring them on. And since then, there was just kind of like beef. And now that they're like, ooh, like the king said that if you don't do this, you're gonna get thrown in the fire, and you didn't do it, so we're gonna tell so that you get thrown in the fire because we don't like you, right? So that's exactly what they went and did. They went and told, and this is King Nebuchadnezzar's reply. So in verse 13 it says, then in a furious rage, Nebuchadnezzar gave orders to bring in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. So then he says, he's mad, and he's like, are you serious? They're not listening to me. You know what? Bring them here. So these men were brought before the king. Nebuchadnezzar asked them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, is it true that you don't serve my gods or worship the gold statue that I have set up? Now, if you're ready, when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, drum, and every kind of music, fall down and worship the statue I made. But if you don't worship it, you will immediately be thrown into a furnace of blazing fire. So now, they bring them to the king, and he says, okay, so now tell me to my face. I'm giving you a second chance. Is it true? Like, I'm hearing that you're not obeying what I said. Like, is it true that you're not going to worship my statue? And then he says, you know what? Like, I'll let you redeem yourself right now. I'm going to play the music, and when the music plays, worship. But if you don't, I will throw you into the fire. Then he says, and who is the God who can rescue you from my power? And that's where he messed up, because now he is questioning what who their God is and what power he has over him. So he's like, do you think that whatever God you have is going to save you from me? He's testing him. He's questioning who God is. So this is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego reply. Verse 16 says, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer to this question. If the God we serve exists, then he can rescue us from the furnace of blazing fire, and he can rescue us from the power of you, the king. But even if he does not rescue us, we want you as king to know that we will not serve your gods or worship the gold statue that you set up. And this is really important, y'all, because what they're basically saying is we don't even have to fight for our God. We don't have to sit here and tell you who our God is. We don't have to explain to you the power he has. He is big enough, powerful enough to speak for himself. All that we need to say is that if he's real, he is going to rescue us from you. And you're going to see that, right? But also know, Nebuchadnezzar, king, that if our God does not save us, we're still not going to bow down to you. You are still not our God. You will not be our God. And that's the truth. So that is them putting their 100% trust in God. And sometimes that's kind of like how we are in life too, right? Like there is some things where we have all these things happening to us that like are out of our control completely. So there's some where we kind of decide, but there's also some that we just cannot control. And in the midst of all that, we're like, oh my gosh, like why would God put me through this? And it's not that he can't rescue you. He could easily just reach out his hand and pull you out of whatever. I think there's a song that says the hurt will all go away if you just said the word. Because, God, like he can just say something and it'll happen. He's the creator of everything. So he could just be like, take this away and it would go away. But there's also a reason why he doesn't do that. So they're saying, we trust in our God that he's going to rescue us. We're not sure how that rescue is going to look like to him. So, he might just leave us in there. He might let us die. He might let us burn. But it's going to be for a reason, and we trust that. And even if you think that you win, even if he lets us burn in there, you will still not be our king. So that's very powerful, for one, because these three guys are like not as important as the king. obviously. And they're having a lot of faith right now because I don't know if you noticed, but these are the three Jews, the only people in the entire place that did not bow down. And they're saying, and we still won't bow down. But Daniel is still in Babylon as well. And I think it's crazy to think that he was there. He's still in Babylon, that he's chief governor at this point, and he is the one who is supposed to be above them. He's kind of like their boss. Like he requested them to be there. And Daniel, so you're telling me that I'm reading that Daniel is also bowing down right now? When in Daniel 2, he just had like he was just a witness of God. He just tried to change Nebuchadnezzar's mind, and he got appointed to this very big place in Babylon, and he didn't stand up and say something. He didn't stand with these three guys that he said that was so great. No, he's down there bowing right now, and that should say a lot. That sometimes, like, it's the people you least suspect, and you should stand up for whatever it is you believe in. Don't let fear get to you, because now Daniel's going to have to answer for that. So let's keep going, because I'm kind of intrigued, right? Verse 19. Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with rage, and the expression on his face changed toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He gave orders to heat the furnace 7 times more than was customary, and he commanded some of the best soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the furnace of blazing fire. So now he's furious because he doesn't like that answer. He's like, are you kidding me? You're not going to give me an explanation. You're just going to say that if he doesn't, you're still not going to worship me? That's insane. So he's mad, and he's like, you know what? Raise that heat up. Make it to where like it's unbearable. They're going to die in the instant that they touch it, and I'm going to send the best soldiers. And usually the best soldiers are like the tallest ones, the strongest ones, the more powerful ones. So he sent the best soldiers that he had to tie up these 3 men and throw them into a furnace that is now 7 times hotter than it could really ever be. Verse 21. So these men in their trousers, robes, head coverings, and other clothes were tied up and thrown into the furnace of blazing fire. So they didn't strip them naked. They didn't like they have all their clothes on from head to toe, their robes, their hats, their trousers, everything. And they just tied them up, right? They're tied. They're all tied up right now. They have ropes on them and they're tied. Verse 22. Since the king's command was so urgent and the furnace extremely hot, the raging flames killed those men who carried up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell bound into the furnace of blazing fire. All right, so think about this. He's sending his best soldiers up there. They're all like they're probably like hands behind their back or something like that. As they're walking up, the fire is so hot that just the flames on top killed the soldiers that were walking them up there. So the best soldiers are now dead, right? And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are now all tied up. They're all bound in their clothes, and now they're thrown into the furnace that just the flames alone killed the best soldiers that they had. Just think about that. All right. Verse 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar jumped up in alarm. He said to his advisors, didn't we throw 3 men bound into the fire? So now here's King Nebuchadnezzar. He was probably just like chilling, he was sitting in his chair, sipping his tea, and he gets up and he's like, I thought we threw 3 men in the fire. What's going on? Then they said, yes, of course, your majesty, they replied to the king. Verse 25, he exclaimed, look, I see 4 men. He's like, look, I see 4 men, not tied, walking around in the fire, unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. All right, so that's a lot going on in this verse right here. So for one, now he's amazed, and he's like, look at it and tell me you don't see 4 people, because there's 4 people right there. There's 4 people walking around. And then also, get this, they're not tied, okay? So that means the fire or something like they're no longer bound. They're not tied, and they're just walking around freely in this fire, unharmed. So they're not hurting right now. They're not in pain. They're walking around freely. They're not tied, And now there's a fourth person. And the fourth person looks like a son of the gods. So something about him is shining, is powerful. There's definitely something noticeable that says, hey, like this is some type of son of the god right here. So verse 26 says, Nebuchadnezzar then approached the door of the furnace of blazing fire and called, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out. So he's like, hey, y'all, like, y'all's God is obviously powerful. Those are servants of the highest God. Come here. Come out. Get out. Come here. So then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire. When the satraps, prefects, governors, and the king's advisers gathered around, they saw that the fire had no effect on the bodies of these men. Not a hair on their heads were singed, their robes were unaffected, and there was no smell of fire on them. So, here again, it is repeating all of the important people that were there. So everybody's seen that when these three men walked out of the fire, their hair was not even singed. Their clothes were not burnt. They didn't even smell like burn, which is crazy because sometimes when I even like have a little like cookout and I go to like a family's house and they're like cooking barbecue, or we have little like oh, like, let's go make some s'mores outside and we're roasting marshmallows. My hair still smells like smoke. These men were sitting in a blazing fire that was 7 times hotter than it normally is, and they came out with not even the smell on them. Isn't that crazy? And if you really think about it, they were untied. So it was so hot, and God was with them, that the fire did not harm them, did not burn their hair, singe their hair, burn their clothes, or even leave the smell of smoke on them. And the only thing that was burnt was the ties, because they're untied. It says that in verse 25. They're walking around not tied, unharmed, and the fourth person looks like the Son of God. So the only thing that burnt in that fire was the ties that the soldiers bound them with. Isn't that something? So just think about that as your normal life, because I know when I was reading this, it made me feel like all of those bounds, all of those ties, it was like, okay, like this tie right here was my fear. Because I was a very fearful person. I was scared. And then the one on my legs, because I'm pretty sure they tied them up like how they normally do when they don't want you to escape. So now the ties on my legs are going to be my anxiety. And if there was any other ties anywhere else, they all had names for them, right? So here I am. I'm in this hallway. I'm in this big fire. There's flames. It's hot. It's smoky. And I have all these ties on me. I have fear. I have anxiety. And you know what God said? Burn it. Take those ties off of her. Burn them off. And he did. And he was there walking in that fire with me. I told y'all that is the only way I was out. He was putting things in my head and he was like, hey, like, we're getting out of this. And we did. And I'm okay. I'm unharmed. My hair is not singed and I definitely don't smell like smoke right now. So, I mean, if you can try to relate these messages in the Bible to your real life, you will see exactly what God is trying to say sometimes. Like God's word is no joke. There is no way that someone should be able to make an event about fire into sitting in a hallway crying, right? But you can, and it makes sense. And when you start putting it into your life as well, it'll make sense and it'll help you see what God is really doing for you and why the things in the Bible say these things. Because we need these things. We need reminding that it's not only ourselves doing this. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, their only job, just like our job, is to believe that God will be there for us and to believe that He is God. And that's exactly what they did. They said, look, we believe that He's real. And we believe that He has the power that He says that He has. And if that's true, He's going to help us. And we don't need to explain anything more because that's not our job. Our job is not to defend Him. Our job is to believe that he's real and to let him show you who he is. Just like we have to, just like Christians have to. We have to believe in God 110% that he is going to always have a plan for us, that he will get us out of whatever we're going through. And that's exactly what they did. And let's see what Nebuchadnezzar says. So, verse 28, Nebuchadnezzar explained, "Praise to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He sent his angel and rescues his servants who trusted in him. They violated the king's command and risked their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their God." So, even the king, the highest of the high, because at the time, King Nebuchadnezzar was like the highest of the highest kings out of everyone around them. They were like 20-0 in any wars or anything that they were having. He was the highest of the highest king. So for the highest of the highest king to sit here and say, look, this God has some power. He did things I can't even do. And he was like, he is giving them all of the credit for what they just did. Because he's like, look, they didn't care. They literally violated my command because they refused to worship anybody else but their God. And that's what God wants us to do as well. For me, what that symbolized, because King Nebuchadnezzar wanted them to bow down to a gold statue. It was made of gold. It was a very tall statue. It was very big. It was mighty. He made it seem like it was like the most special thing ever. And then he's like, they wouldn't bow down to it. For me, my statue at that point of my life was money. I wanted more money because I thought that was going to help me in my life. And I'm here now with the same amount of money and the same bills that I was struggling with. And what I was doing at the time was I was bowing down to that statue. I was letting that money be my God. And I was like, please, this is all I want. If I get this, it'll make me happy. And it wasn't, right? And God does say in the Bible to worship no other God but him. So with me doing that, how do you think that made God feel? And how did that make me feel when I read that, right? So when I read it, I was like, wow, that's literally what I was doing. I was worshiping other things. I was chasing after love. I was chasing after money. I was chasing after anything to fulfill my heart besides God, because I was going through a lot of things. And that's what that statue symbolizes. It's not just, like the Statue of Liberty and it's like made of rock and it's just like standing there like hee. No, that can be symbolisms of so many things in your life that you're personally dealing with. It could be lust. It could be just fear, anxiety. That could be your statue. That is like what you're worshiping. It could even be something like so simple as like you have a shopping addiction. It could be an addiction. It could be drinking. Like you worship your beer more than you do God. Like you probably go ends of the earth to make sure that you're going to have a drink today, but you're not going to open your Bible, but you're not going to listen to God's word. That's exactly what he's saying. Yeah. So if you're giving anything else more glory than you're giving God, that is your statue, and you need to not bow down to it. You need to not bow down to it. You need to fight it, and God will rescue you from that. And he shows that right here. I will get rid of all of your bounds. I will save you from the fire. You will walk in the fire in front of your enemies if you do not bow down to those statues. So, then verse 29 says, therefore, I issue a decree that anyone of any people, nation, or language who says anything offensive against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego will be torn limb from limb, and his house made a garbage dump. For there is no other God who is able to deliver like this. Then the king rewarded Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. So King Nebuchadnezzar admits, there is no other God who is able to deliver like this. He's like, this is insane. He's like, whenever I questioned your God, man, I had no idea he was capable of this. And now that I know, he is definitely the God. And if there is anyone who says anything about your God, I know for a fact they are also insane. And I will, he says, they will be torn limb from limb, and his house made a garbage dump. So they are going to destroy his house. They are going to pick them off limb by limb if you say anything about this God that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego worship. Because that God is real. That God is mighty. That God is powerful. More powerful than me. And I will make certain that if you talk about that God, you're going to regret it, right? And that's the end of Daniel 3. The reason why I love this so much is because, like I said, at the time that I read it, it just reminded me so much of my current situation, of how I was just like head deep into all of these flames, all of this smoke. I was burning and I was just scared. And after reading that, I was like, you know what? I'm not scared of the fire anymore. I'm not scared of being so like deep in the smoke to where I can't breathe. Bring the heat, bring it, because I know that whatever heat level you're bringing, like King Nebuchadnezzar did, he's like, you know what? Let's make it 7 times hotter then, because they think that they're all big, they think that they're worthy, they think all these things. Let's make it 7 times hotter for them. And that's exactly what the enemy was doing to me. They were like, you know what? This girl is still awake. She's still getting up every day. Let's add all these other things to her. And it almost did get, I mean, it did get to me. And I was tied up in the fire. And God went and burnt off all my bounds, all my ties. He burnt them off. And I came out unharmed, unsinged. I felt the heat though. I felt the heat. Okay? But it didn't burn me. It didn't destroy me. And I'm still here. And now it's my job to let y'all know that this stuff is real. Okay? It's real. And I hope that y'all join me for my next Bible study, because it's going to start getting really good. Y'all are going to start hearing a lot more stories, because we're going to start in the book of John, which is the main chapter that is full of just like witnesses of God's glory and like Jesus's blessings and like everything that he's miracles, all the things that he did. And I can't wait for y'all to see that, because or hear that and go with that with y'all, because that is like one of the best chapters in the entire Bible. It's just gonna let you know, if God can do those things, there is nothing too big that he can't do for you. There's nothing too big. Like if you really think like, man, like yeah, like God can help this person do this, but my situation is so huge, like I don't think that he can do that. And honestly, that's not true at all. And you're gonna see that when we read the book of John, because he has done some very big miracles, very big blessings for people. And after you read that, you're gonna know he can help you through anything. I hope you all liked it, and comment your favorite part, or if I missed, maybe I didn't say something that maybe you interpreted different or that I missed, like let me know, because I am really like interested in learning more and just talking about it with y'all, like seriously. And if this is your first time reading the Bible, like I am so happy that I'm able to help you open it and talk about it. And yeah. Also guys, that being said, I need y'all to think about like during the next week or so, just throughout your day, what statues in your life are you worshiping more than God? What statue is that is in your way that you need to stop bowing down to, that you need to stop being scared of, and that is hindering your relationship with God? What bounds are tying you into the fire, and what do you need God to burn for you? So just keep that in mind, because I think that is a very important question and some things that people need to think about, because sometimes that is just the first step in realizing that you need help and to ask God to help you.
But yeah, so just think about those questions. Comment them down below if you want.
See y'all next time. Thank you for joining. Love y'all.